uncovered some, speaking of nefarious things with money, some very sketchy stuff the CCP is doing in Prince Edward Island in Canada. Most people don't know about Prince Edward Island, though apparently Matt and Shelley are very familiar with it because they're Anne of Green Gables fans. But what is this place that you're doing research in?
Well, I think we've got to look at it in a realistic point of view. Like Prince Edward Island is a small island. It's on our east coast. It's got great sight lines to the Caribbean, great sight lines to United States. So if you look at it from that, it's a great geographic location. But I think from a Canada-U.S. point of view, that what we really, I think, hits home for me is, we're tightly linked, regardless of the way the politics are playing out today. We are still tightly linked. We've got NORAD, we've got the Five Eyes, we've got NATO. All of that ties us real close to the United States. And what's happening with I would say the CCP is really something that is occurring in the United States equally as well as Canada. Canada, I think, is ripe for it because sadly, enforcement has been very lax in probably the last 15 years in this country. We saw it in British Columbia. There's all kinds of evidence that surfaced. You probably heard about the Vancouver model, where real estate was being purchased and money coming over using gambling casinos. Obviously, that's not the case in PEI. We're not seeing gambling casinos. But what we are seeing is a religious organization holding itself out to be tied to the Dalai Lama. And we have proof that the Dalai Lama is not involved directly with them in any way, and nor does he support them in any way. The reality of it is this is a group that has formed. They brought in millions of dollars, and they've been getting around the land restrictions, which is been able to do that by the nuns and monks buying 5 acres each, which flies in the face of what being a monk is supposed to be all about, or a nun is supposed to be all about. And all of that eventually is controlled by the monastery itself. So we're talking tens of millions of dollars that has gone into this province. We're also talking about that they made a $41 million investment for a location in New York State. So this is a group that has expanded. What we are able to did learn is that they have built a number of monasteries, which has very large, inclusive tunnels between the buildings, which has a server room, a computer server room that probably would be aligned with a research university. It has its own fiber optics cable that they paid about $2 million to bring in, wouldn't allow anybody else to hook up to it. So it really begs that a lot of questions need to be asked.
So this is in PEI, they have the server room and the fiber optics.
They have both the server room and the fiber optic cable going into it.
Well, presumably it's helpful to gather all that data on your quest towards enlightenment.
It's the fifth pillar of Buddhism, fiber optic cables.
Yes.
Well, you need something to link all the pillars,
That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a lovely name, the Bliss and Wisdom Monastery. I mean, how could there be anything nefarious or CCP linked about that?
And it's that organization is not a Chinese organization. It's based in Taiwan, right?
Well, it's based in Taiwan, but Master Zheng Ru, who is the master of the monastery, hails out of China. A lot of the individuals that have come in there as monks and nuns hail out of China. And yes, on the surface, a lot of it has come out of Taiwan. But don't forget that Taiwan has 2 factions in there. They have those that are really aligned with the CCP party. And then you've got the others who want to maintain democracy. And so there is two streams, and I think we have to be cognizant of that. But we definitely are seeing Chinese investment through the monasteries. And there's, sadly, the province itself has basically relinquished all control over education, over health, just recently there was a number of vials of blood, medical waste, and that found behind a building in Chinese characters. And basically, the province came out and it was nothing to see here, folks. But, there should have been a lot of questions asked about that. All of that should be done through a proper medical facility. So there's a lot of red flags. This all starts, and I think what we need to, if you go back, there's two individuals that I think really got this going. And the individuals, one of them by the name of Frank Zhao and Sherry Wang, they are individuals that came out of China. They're the individuals that went to Prince Edward Island, and we understand the information we received. They were sort of recommended to go there by the former Prime Minister John Chrétien. They went down there, they ingratiated themselves with the politicians, and they formed this group of study abroad, Canada, and that's where they started bringing in students and the like into Prince Edward Island and into the monastery. And then Zhao and Wang formed this group called the Sunrise Group. And if you were to look at the number of corporations that are all under this, it really has a lot of hallmarks that would raise a lot of questions. They've ingratiated themselves, and I think they've been involved in elite capture. Frank went back to China. We know this for a fact. He's been dubbed a Red Princeling coming out of China. He was honored by President Xi. And so you look at this, I think there's enough red flags that begs for what Wayne Easter, a former Solicitor General of Canada, has called for a public inquiry. And I think it begs for that.
I mean, vats of human biological material. I mean, who doesn't have that in their backyard?
I mean, I don't know about vats. Just,
A reasonable amount of human biological waste material.
So the Frank Zhou and Sherry Wang, what they were doing, bringing people in from China to Prince Edward Island, it was kind of billed as people to people kind of exchange, right?
Correct.
These great relationships being built.
And when was this?
Well, this was back in the mid 90s, 2000, early 2000s. They also were instrumental in creating a lot of joint ventures with China, attracting politicians to go over to China. I'll be quite honest with you, a lot of the politicians, in my view, from what I've seen, is probably could be argued that they were elite captured. How they were elite captured, whether it was through money, whether it was a honey trap or whatever. But the reality is they were elite captured, and that is very prevalent unfortunately, in our country.
So, what are you talking about? PEI officials?
PEI officials, others in the East Coast, definitely on the West Coast. I was stationed over in Asia for 3 years, 91 to 94. I witnessed it with a former mayor of British Columbia, and then he was the premier. And, I got a front page picture of him standing with the father of the Sun Yat Triad Society with his arm up in the air, how they became good friends. So you start looking at things like that, you have to ask a lot of questions.
So I guess the big question in my mind is I get why, the CCP would have a casino in Vancouver doing money laundering, drug trafficking, human trafficking. Why a Buddhist monastery in Prince Edward Island?
Well, I think there's, it's where I'm able to state it beyond a reasonable doubt. But, I think our argument, and we try and explain it very well in our book, Canada Under Siege, is that it is, in my view, a forward operating base, or has that potential to become one. And it's strategically located. If you were to look at it, and we were to look at how China, through their Belt and Road Initiative, has set up in some of the Caribbean islands through the loaning of money for the building of airports, et cetera, and now they control them, or for the building of ports, and they now have that control of them. if you were to look at that and then you look at Prince Edward Island where it's located, we got a very large, not in context of the U.S., but we have a Navy base in Halifax, Nova Scotia. We know that the Chinese have made some investments in Nova Scotia. We know that the premier has had over 9 trips to China in the recent past. And so that raises a lot of questions. And, I think it comes down to what is the risk of our sovereignty if tomorrow, and God forbid it does, but let's say we end up in a war with China. How safe are we?
Want to learn more? Of course you do. There's a new documentary about it. Check out this trailer.
I publish books. A modest success here, other times less so. But I like to think what I publish makes a difference. 2 years ago, PEI Islanders began contacting me. They wanted to share their stories of what was happening on their island. Little did I know that I would be drawn into a journey that would start on the island and run halfway around the world.
The monks control all that sector down east.
Really, what's the end game here?
There is a lot of suspicion. Where does the money come from?
就是在应对人际之间的高手，他是一个交际高手，他可以察言观色，了解你的心理，然后知道你想要什么，他会给你什么。
Buddhism leaders under CCP's control or under PRC's control, they need to use Taiwan to control the Buddhism forum.
We approached your premier of the island. They didn't know that the behind it, the very complicated relation between the monastery and the Chinese CCP.
The Chinese are coming to Taiwan with all possible ways. Religious group, temples, and even organized crimes. This is bigger than we thought. This is severe.
I was walking into a game of shadows. Luckily, I have friends who know the game.
Click below to watch it now.